This is New Room Collective, where collapse meets clarity and leaders learn to speak in storms. No hype, no masks, just command-grade truth. Let's begin.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and good night. It is Friday, May 30th. It's me and Ray here with New Room Collective. How you doing today, brother?
I am great. Thank you for asking. As I said, life has been busy, productive, hectic, and beautiful all at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly what I wanted to talk a little bit more about today is how all of this signals that we're getting out here are either really helping us or they're hurting us. As you know, that there's a lot of noise, not just in the marketplace, but in people's personal and professional lives. So that's one of the reasons why we have New Room Collective. It's strictly designed for us to help people become critical thinkers, not critical people. So, and I think that's a big task and a big undertaking. But at the end of the day, we have plenty of people on the other side who are doing it, right?
Very true. That's a good statement there. Critical thinkers, not critical people, because it feels like a majority of people out there just like to criticize things, right? There's a lot of critical people, and there's a lot of buzz topics out there that get people to the critical side. So, yeah, I fully agree with you. I certainly consider myself a critical thinker, and it probably wasn't until I got into my entrepreneurial journey that I really rewired my brain in that way.
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk about that a little bit, man, because I think that's where people are dropping the ball. I'm actually streaming this on my personal timeline as well. So, as you know, we have a lot of gurus on the timeline as well as some industry players. So, shout out to everybody out here as well who is trying to not only just help people, but really serve people to the highest good with your skills. And one thing we talked about last week that still stuck with me, bro, and I wanted to go into a little bit more detail was what's out here as far as you seeing people in the trenches turning wrenches because there's so much misinformation out here. It's really hurting people in a very, very bad way as far as trust goes. And you're like the calm side of me.
That's one way to put it. That's one way to put it. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more about the lack of trust in the market and what's going on out there. But as you said, shout out to, gurus and, high level operators and service providers out there that are really helping people the right way. Because right now, what is the best currency in the market is authenticity, genuineness. It is operating from core values that people want to align with, ethical, integrity based, solution based, always operating in the best interest of who's on the other end of the line, whether you're on a sales call, a Zoom call with a prospect, a client. Are we operating that way always? And is that in the forefront of how we portray ourselves, whether it's in our copy, our content, how we show up on calls and in person? Because you and I both do a bit of hybrid online and offline marketing. I think
Yeah.
all those things are really, really relevant when it comes to that topic.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go super high level on this. How do you see it really evolving over the years? Because here's what I'm seeing in a marketplace that's still a problem. How do we get to this point? You know what I'm saying? We get bad information that's just been passed down, that somebody have an original copy and then the copy got copied, then the copy got copy off the copy. And then through time, we just have all of this noise in the marketplace. I mean, like, really, what do you see? Because matter of fact, you know what, I'll go first because this is a hot topic for me because what's happening that I'm definitely seeing, not just online or offline, is that people are still throwing their whole life savings at gurus out here who are not helping them at all. Like, there's even memes about it right now. If you go on Instagram and you see how people are like, charging $20,000 for a coaching program, and then they just say, "Hey, you're not showing up." It's just like, what are you talking about? Like, I just gave you my life savings. But what I think people need to talk about a little bit more is the other side of the coin. Like, what happens once somebody says yes? Like, how does that affect their personal life, their professional life? Because what I think that the space online misses is the fact that there are human beings on the other side of this. So it's not just marketing and sales, to your point. Like, I love to close, I love to talk to people, but this really affects economies at scale. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed one of the things is the human component that a lot of people overlook, and they think it's all business and just transactional. And that may be a facet of what happens on an interaction, but I don't think that's the primary factor. The primary factor is the human element and just being able to have conversations with people and see if you can genuinely help them overcome an obstacle, reach a certain desired solution or result or outcome. But I think to my other kind of flip side on the take is back to what you talked about with critical thinking and how we got to this point. I think we got to this point by having not a lot of critical thinkers and people that just did what you said. And that's how we got to this point. So a guru created this great coaching program and made $10 million. And then they taught 1,000 students how to copy and paste that formula and make $10 million, but none of them made $10 million. They made fractions of that. And then they taught their students how to make $1 million and they made a fraction of that, and it kept trickling down. So there's just a lot of copy and paste tactics where people never learned the actual strategy and approaches that move the tactics. Really, I don't know a better way to say it, that move the tactics forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I'm gonna call it out, man. So if you've never heard of this methodology before, it's called performative messaging. So here's how performative messaging works. Performative messaging is like, hey, I just helped 5 clients make $25,000 in 30 days. Want to know how I did it? Click the link below to learn more, or send me a DM, or do this or do that, right? Now, you can ethically use that, especially if you're using it for like a white paper or a real case study, and you really are selling like a genuinely valid coaching program that actually has what we call successful actions, meaning that if almost everybody did it, then it will work for practically everybody. But the truth of the matter is, to Ray's point, because I even saw it last week on the Instagram reel, where this one guru had somebody who was their student spend money. They spent the day hanging out, and next thing you know, one reel is saying one thing, another reel saying the exact same thing but a different way, and it's not the exact same story. So that's what we call on the back end cognitive dissonance. Yep. But on the front end, it's called you being a consumer of some, I don't want to use the F-bomb here because we're on some platforms and we're streaming, but let's just say it's not a real authentic way to make your money. But what's happening is, when you look at it from this culture where microwave popcorn is too slow, these guys now think, oh, well, all I have to do is just talk and I'm just going to make money and $100,000 is going to show up. It's like, no, you still have to make work, because the guru is actually like legit. The frameworks are legit. The process is legit, but the end user of that process is using it a completely different way. And that's where I see the disconnect is. They're not really taking, like as an example, they're not taking that structure and they're not putting their own messaging to it. They're just trying to sell another shovel versus helping people get the gold, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, what you were talking about with that type of marketing, I agree. You can do it. You can do it when it's 100% true and it applies to the masses. But in most of those cases, it's the outlier. Hey, 5 of my clients made 25 grand. The other 30 of them made nothing and paid me money. They don't tell you that part, right? So yeah, if it's a majority, or, I mean, when I do that type of marketing, for instance, I did a live stream yesterday when I went through it on YouTube, and I titled it How I Made My First $1 Million Online Doing These 2 Things, right? That is 100% accurate, and there's no call to action. I give away this information for free. I'm not asking them to click here for your download thing. If you clicked on the video, you obviously have some intent about that. So yeah, I totally see what you're saying. I still see it all the time, and that's what most people don't tell you. Now, to your second point there about, you're right, like the template or the formula or what they've given you for the information did work for the guru. That person is legit. The problem is when you are implementing it and you're just copying and pasting it, you don't have the same personality. It's not as genuine or authentic. And the other side that a lot of people don't talk about is they're like, hey, I learned from guru A or B or C that's, got this huge following and making $30 million a year and yada, 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 but they don't have those same foundations. So it's like, if you don't have this big following and this big list, but you follow this person's formula or frameworks to a T, you're not going to see the same results because it's not getting in front of as many people. So there's both of those components that people don't talk about. They're like, hey, this worked for me. It can work for you too, Fred. And then you start doing it and you're like, well, damn, this probably isn't working because I don't have 800,000 followers and I don't have an email list of 30,000 like this guy.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I literally coined it the collapse economy. Because when you have a whole bunch of people in large numbers and mass in that scale selling nothing but like air, you've got a major problem on your hands. Now, granted, I did finance and insurance. That's a different type of air, because in exchange for the promise, you get a piece of paper saying if something happens to your vehicle, then yes, you need to, we'll take care of it. But it's not even that kind of transaction or exchange here. It's just like, oh, well, yeah, I discovered this, and as a result of that, I did this, and you can do it too, and it's only just $27, or go to my master class. It's just like, it has to stop, because the reality of it is this is affecting mental health, and this is something that people don't talk about, but I see it and I experience it behind closed doors, especially with some of the top level players. When I'm coaching somebody and they're just like, well, why isn't it working for me? I'm just like, well, are you a guru? It's just like, that's not that. If you're not a guru, it won't work for you. If you're just like a small to mid cap business owner and you're selling a tangible product, and guess what? You already have the goods, because you're actually selling something that people can see, touch, feel, smell, taste, hear, whatever, right? But if you're talking about something that's intangible, well, you got to be a little bit more careful about when you're selling things that are intangible. And this is the reasons why the FTC and the FCC and all the other parts of the alphabet are now on the online marketing space, is because, dude, I thought it was bad when I was selling cars. It ain't nothing like how it is online, and it needs to stop, because what's happening is, as a result of that, you have a whole economy that's just not working. People are out of the game, and it's to the tune of trillions of dollars. This is what people don't understand. Like, there's a social media industrial complex, there's the marketing industrial complex, there's the advertising industrial complex. And the crazy thing about it was, a lot of this stuff didn't exist prior to the 90s. But now that we have the internet, a lot of this stuff has accelerated into its own industries. It's codified. So the people who are trying to sell you the shovels at that level, they can sell you the shovels, they can get the gold, but they also got the labs to be able to experiment to figure out where the next pioneering thing is for the breakthrough. So you gotta really understand that there's different lanes and levels to this, because if you don't get that part right, then you're always going to be stuck in this perpetual performative messaging cycle where you're trying to find the next thing when you actually probably have the diamond right in front of you. You just don't know what it looks like yet. And that's the reasons why I want to cut through all the noise with you, is because the messaging, especially for trust-based leadership, is essential these days. Because I tell you what, I'm not going to give somebody like $40,000 or $50,000 if they aren't highly vetted and they've got receipts, like, period.
Yeah, the messaging and the vision are both essential. And you're right, what you talked about, when people are struggling to implement something that they've paid tens of thousands or whatever, it doesn't matter necessarily how much that they paid, but they've paid, money for, and they've tried to implement it and they struggle, or it doesn't work. It does lead to some of their own mental health. I had a pretty good example of that last night. I was running a private call for my private flagship PDOC students, and a couple members were on there. I don't necessarily know if I want to categorize it as mental health. I think it all falls within that, but I saw a lot of their doubts, their fears, their, the imposter syndrome, all that stuff creeping in within people, because they feel like they're going to get judged when they put out content or talk about their offer. I'm not very extroverted. I'm more of an introvert, so I'm never going to be able to be like Russell Brunson or insert whoever guru. I just picked a name, out of thin air. But I see a lot of that where it's like, if you're really good at what you do, and you literally a lot of people are really good at what they do. And one of my clients said this to me last night. They're like, well, Ray, I'm a doer, not really a teacher. I feel like doers, if you can do, you generally don't teach. What's that phrase? People that teach can't actually do it, so they teach it. But in our space, especially when you get with real people, real ones like you and I, we can do it and we can teach it. And the best way, I said, for somebody like that person who's very introverted, lack of confidence, not very outgoing or outspoken, is, the way you can teach it if you're a doer, do it, get results, and just document it in real time and share that with people. I mean, it can be that simple sometimes.
Yeah, I want to go deep into that one, bro, because I think that's false in the respect that people who say that stuff, they don't understand how humans work. The way that humans work, and the reasons why we have a civilization, is because people have to train it. Like, in order to get mastery, you do have to practice it, meaning that you have to do it over and over and over again until you get a result. But more importantly, like, say, for example, my kids, right? I taught most of them how to sell cars. So as a result of that, they are highly, widely successful in their own respective rights, right? They do other stuff in life. They make their money. They're crushing it, right? But what about the people who are in the same industry or the same mindset or the same flow or the same zone, and they're not getting the right information? But let's just say somebody who does have that knowledge, they want to grow. Well, that's where I'm seeing the disconnect, is because we have a lot of savvy marketers out there who say, hey, those who can't do this teach. It's all BS, bro. It's just like, I'm a high level facilitator. I got receipts. I have worked in some of the highest level rooms on this planet. And I'm letting you know that there's a difference between competition and collaboration. And in order for us to get this economy and this world back on track, we have to drop all of these false beliefs and really understand that we must start collaborating. Collaborating is not a word. Collaborating. but we've got to start collaborating, period. And yes, there's going to be an exchange there. But here's the other thing that I'm seeing that's dropping off that really just started coming back recently, is the fact that you have to understand that literally what you're doing is by definition a trade. So as an example, if you're an employee, shine on, be an employee, do the best at it. Understand that there's a trade there, though. In exchange for your time and your knowledge, you're getting paid a certain amount. If you happen to be a solopreneur, maybe you decided that you wanted to jump from being an employee to a solopreneur, but you may not have that template. Well, guess what? Most people don't want to fall back onto being an employee. So what do? They struggle. They label themselves as an entrepreneur. They become this lone wolf. They start suffering from mental health problems because, quite frankly, you might have been a good salesperson. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a good sales manager. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good business owner. So people struggle on that level, right? And then you've got business owners who may or may not have either inherited a business or maybe they've built from the ground up, right? It's different levels to this thing. And that's my whole point to you, Ray. A lot of people don't understand that once you realize that you need to just figure out what your lane is and just stay in your lane, then what happens is this magic just happens. You just start really going, wow, I didn't look at it from that viewpoint. I didn't look at it from this viewpoint. Other resources start showing up. But I guarantee you, as God's my witness, the people who are still getting ripped off to this day have pride and ego because they're not really asking for help. Because I've seen it on the ad side. People will run an ad to people who are already in their heads, and then they get these conversions, and the person's still stuck in their head, so they can't even unpack what they learned because they're moving on to the next thing. And then they have all of this stuff on their computer that they've never used, and then they're wondering why things aren't working. And I listened to this guru, and they said this, and I listened to this guru, and they said that, and they're Frankensteining stuff versus understanding that they just need to be still for a second and just see what they need right now. Like, what's that one next step? Sorry for the rant, bro, but you just pushed a button there.
No, that's what we do when we talk with one another.
Yeah, man.
I know. And to speak more on that, like you started off talking about your kids and you giving them some knowledge and, wisdom about the industry and about business and about, finances and money. A lot of people don't really get that from their parents. If you really don't get that in public schools. They don't go through any of that stuff. I think they want to groom you just to be a 40 to 50 hour a week employee for the next 50 years of your life. And that's the way kind of schools have been. I don't even know if I want to use the word indoctrinated, but that's
indoctrination is a good word. I'll use indoctrination.
Yeah, I'm careful about how I use that, but I believe that's the right word in this case. So then the next step is if you don't get that information from somebody savvy, a mentor, your parents, or anything like that, and you go out into the market, you start to get especially if you start to look around, you start to get information flying at you from all different areas, bad information, good information. You're Frankensteining it together, like you said, which always leads to, especially a lot of the poor information, misinformation leads to false beliefs, misconceptions. And then that leads to self-doubt or just giving up and saying, this is too hard, or I can't do it, or I quit. And a lot of it is just because you got bad information or you have false beliefs or big market misconceptions about what's actually out there right now.
Yeah, 100%. I want to send a shout out to Mr. LaRouche. She said, what's up? What's up, brother? Good to see you. I want to see JP. Indoctrination is accurate. I tend to agree. Let's quantify this, though, because, again, I want to be very gentle to your point. That's the reasons why I love speaking to you, is because you want to make sure that you're using accurate words. So I'm an educator, okay? I have gotten paid all my life from teaching people things. So it takes one to know one. What I can tell you is that indoctrination is an accurate word. I want to be able to put it into proper context because it's just like in the Marine Corps. I was indoctrinated into learning how to become a United States Marine, right? when I did special operations capable stuff, like when we were doing workups, when we did all of this other stuff to really get to the next level of high level life or death training, I was indoctrinated. It's not a bad word. So I think what we have to do as human beings is take that, what I call half-second step back. Because to your point, I don't want to inflame people. I love to talk about religion. I love to talk about politics, but there has to be certain ground rules involved with understanding so that we can really have a breakthrough, because that's where the energy is. And you've heard me say it before, you got to bring the data and the drama, and we'll figure out a way to monetize it, because if we don't, then someone else will. It is not that hard, but sometimes we tend to bring our own emotions in versus really stepping back and going, hey, is what this saying really apply to me? But more specifically, why am I here right now? Like, why am I hearing this message? And I think if we really look at it from that viewpoint, this is the reasons why I curate my whole environment to a way where I want to be able to focus in on making the main thing, so that when I am learning something, I am properly getting indoctrinated. There is a real thing. I have to unlearn this thing and move on to the next thing. I have to move from first base to second base, which means I need to let go of this and move over here to do this. It's one of those things where, look, man, I don't know how much time you have on this planet, but as long as I'm here, I'm going to do my best to serve others to the highest level. And that requires me starting new things, changing other things that may have happened, and just stopping some other things, because everything happens in seasons and cycles.
Well, one thing I do know is I have nothing guaranteed beyond this minute right now. So none of us know how long we have on this planet. So make the most of it. But back to what you were talking about, and that's why I was careful. I think it was the right word too, but I do like to be careful with my words, because you don't want to mischaracterize things. Yep. But one of the other things you were talking about there, that was great. Bring your, what did you say? Bring your drama,
bring the data, not the drama, and so we'll figure out how to monetize it.
Yeah, and be able to come with open dialogue, right? I think a lot of people are very closed-minded to stuff, especially when you start to talk about the politics and religion topics, right? People already come in with their avenue and their lane, and there's no outside of that lane, right? You have to be able to have an open dialogue. Where it took me till I was probably 40 to really take a step back and look at the indoctrination that happened in my life. Which parts of that was good? Because there's good indoctrination and there's bad indoctrination. It's not all bad. I think people always have a negative connotation to that word, when that's definitely not always the case. But I can certainly look back at it now and see what high school and public school, not even high school, let's go K through 12, was kind of grooming me for. But I didn't put my finger on it till I really stepped back as a critical thinker, 20, 30 years removed from being in school, where I really realized, oh, okay, I kind of see why I had the thought process, and, the thought process is the best way to say it. And just the way my brain was wired was from 12 years of 8 hours a day doing things in this regimented way. You know what I mean?
I do. And you want to know why most people are stuck, brother? Most people are stuck because they literally can't make a yes or no decision. That's the problem. So as an example, you have mentioned this, and this is spot on, bro. That's why I love speaking to you. Some people are still living in their past, and some people are living too far into the future. And to your point, the only thing that I have is right now. So I like to be here in this moment, so that way I'm able to experience the essence of life. And that's the key word. What do we all want? Yeah, we want freedom. When you look at how this world really works, and I challenge anybody to really drop a comment, drop a post, let me know, because this is a real big word right here. What people really want is experience. Here's what I mean by that. Why are we moving from first base to second base? Why do we want the Lambo? Why do we want the car? Why do we want that trip? Why do we want all of this stuff? Now, yes, some of it has been programmed, and some of it has been a part of a negative indoctrination factor. But for the most part, we want experience. We want experiences. There's a whole generation, as an example, that disrupted the car game, because it went from purchases to leases, and now it went to renting cars. Yeah. I think BMW at that point in time was one of the very first ones who actually started experimenting with the rentals for millennials, right? So there's always going to be a shift in consciousness where people just want to do things a lot more effectively and efficiently. But in comparisons to maybe the medieval ages, we're all living like kings. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that, I should be like a knight in shining armor or something. But my point is,
you got your castle and Goldilocks behind you.
Right. We're always evolving, right? So we have to be able to understand why we want what we want. Why do we want that experience? To me,
Yeah,
the why is so important, but that requires us really stopping and looking in the mirror to figure out exactly why we want that. You know, the craziest thing about it, bro, and you notice is that for like 20 years, I worked with nothing but 7 to 10 figure business earners, like period.
yeah,
Like that's all I did. It's not the same lane as somebody struggling to make payroll. It's not the same lane as somebody trying to figure out like which Instagram reel they should be listening to or swiping. I didn't even know about all of that stuff practically until 2020, right? So new levels, new devils, but you have to figure out why you want to get to another level if that's what you want in the first place, because that's going to affect your messaging. That's going to affect your movements. That's going to affect your mission. That's going to affect your purpose. Because if you don't have your purpose aligned with exactly what you want, to me, in my opinion, the experiences don't matter. You could have good experiences or bad experiences, but if you properly calibrate that up front, then it's easier to draw a straight line and walk it. But until you get that done, you're going to be confused just like everybody else. You won't know what a good yes looks like. You won't know what a good no looks like, because to me it's all growth. You're either going to have
I
negative
agree.
growth or you're going to have positive growth.
Well, you're going to learn from both. You're going to learn from both. But I think you're right. You led off, with talking about indecisiveness, really, and that is a big factor in individuals nowadays. For one, I'm not saying it hasn't always been. I've just been working with people a lot closely in the last 5 years, so that's where I'm making my judgment from. It's certainly a big problem, and I would say, the apprehension or hesitancy to take risks also is certainly a big thing. But I think you could probably agree with me. Almost anybody or anything worthwhile in my life that has really blown up and reached proportions or levels higher than I thought possible, and definitely, people I've worked with, colleagues, students, etc., without some type of level of big risk, they would have never hit that peak, that pier, right? And then going back to what you were saying, like, what are we all craving? Experience. It certainly is, especially if you think about it. And I love the way you laid that out, putting your words together. And with that, experience, what are we all also looking for? Happiness. And this could be different in everybody, but some semblance of satisfaction or fulfillment in your life. I think almost everybody I talk to in some capacity feels, unsatisfied or underfulfilled in their capacity in life. And it's not always about business. I don't want to just tie that down to business, because I've seen a lot of things where the unfulfillment and happiness was all outside of business. They were killing it in business, but the rest of their life was a mess. And it didn't matter how much money they were making, because they weren't enjoying any of it, and they weren't having real, live, visceral experiencing these experiences. You know what I mean? Like you said, they weren't actually present. They were just going through the motions to try to hit the highest revenue goals, to go brag about it to their friends, which weren't even friends when they came back to, which they actually realized.
Yeah, 100%. And if
It's a
you guys
vicious
are,
cycle there,
yeah, tracking. And if you guys are really enjoying this, drop us a like, drop us a love, drop us a comment. Let us know exactly what you want to talk about. We did reopen up New Room Collective. Me and Ray have been holding it down for the last 5 years, doing some crazy things, from advertising technology stuff all the way down to basic messaging 101. We have been end to end as far as this game goes. But I also want to drop in a little bit more about the religious side of things, because here's what I've discovered. I want to give everybody who's watching this a bridge today. Because if we don't start talking about things that are highly inflammatory or could be considered highly inflammatory, then it's going to be hard to really get breakthroughs. And this is what I literally talked about at the United Nations. There's 437 trillion with a T dollar deficit that we have as a global family. That's a big problem. So how do we get there? Go back and listen to this. We'll walk you through it. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of stuff out here that derails you. But that was one of the strengths that we had at New Room, Ray, is that, and I never talked about the successes of it, because that was still a highly experimental environment. But we did have several people who came out the room and are doing really well in the journalism field. They've either started their own YouTube channels. They're actually real journalists. They got their credentials. Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff where I'm telling you guys, if you learn how to think like this and think through the creative and think through what you want, you're going to be able to communicate in a way where you're going to get exactly what you want. And even when I was in the Marine Corps learning a lot of this stuff, the challenge that I saw most people having was that we don't operate at a civilian level with enough discipline to be able to handle these tools. It's almost like if you're trying to fire a rifle, right, versus trying to fire a Desert Eagle, or you're trying to fire a 22 versus a Desert Eagle. I think that would probably be a better analogy, right? They're both guns, but one's way more powerful. It's no different than driving a Toyota versus a Bugatti. They both got wheels, but one of them is an engine that you need a steering wheel to control, like for real. So if we really understand the magnitude and depth of communication, then that'll help you really understand exactly where you need to step your game up, because there does need to be a stepping up of a game right now. And part of that process is to really strip back all of this noise that you're hearing, all of these multiple voices that you're seeing or hearing or experiencing, and really understanding that your voice is just as important. If we were to look 1,000 years from now, is your name still going to be out there 2,000 years? As an example, the Japanese actually have a practice in their culture, especially like companies like Toyota, where if they're dying founders or people who are key people, they will actually like inherit people, like they actually adopt like people who are not even into the ecosystem. That's how important what I'm telling you really is. So, but how can you think like that if you're too busy worrying about what your next door neighbor's doing, or you're worrying about what you're seeing on Instagram from like doing a doom scroll? Like, is that stuff really going to matter at the end of the day, if and when you take your last breath? I say if, because literally within the next 4 years, everybody will have the opportunity to reset their clock by 2.5 years. Like, this is science, bro. Anybody can look this up. But again, we're not at that point in time. I don't know when my last breath is going to be. But what I can tell you is that if we work from really getting our purpose, our vision, and our mission together, the rest of the stuff will just show up because it's already been there. You just got to clear your optics. Did I rant, or did that make sense, bro?
No, that made a lot of sense. That made a lot of sense. It made sense also through like some people's lens of a legacy perspective. Will people still be talking about you after you pass? Will you leave something for future generations and future people to benefit from? And all those things. So I'm not going to go as far as thousands of years, but for instance, there's going to be names that people, I mean, we all have our own, but there's some that are unanimous that are just always going to be prominent in people's minds, no matter how much time passes, right? George Washington, for crying out loud. Like, that guy's never going to be forgotten as long as there are Americans or humans in history. And there's dozens and dozens, if not hundreds and thousands of other examples. And I'm not saying that everybody has the goal to want to be a George Washington level legacy. That's not realistic, right? We're not all going to be that person, but we can all still forge our own legacy that leaves something for future generations. And more specifically for me, it's leaving a better life and remnants for my kids once I'm no longer here on this heavenly planet.
100%. And I'm glad you said it just like that, bro, because again, you've watched me and we've done it together, whether it's through PDocs, Audience Lab, Ads Lab. Like, we've used my tech for speed scaling and all of them. Everybody else had their own respective tech. It's just like having a great basketball team coming together, right? And we're just doing great things. The reasons why, and this is what people don't know about the speed scaling story, I literally had to pull it out of other rooms because they were using it unethically. It was the craziest thing because I'm coming from a different lane, just dropping powerful knowledge. And I'm thinking everybody knows this. So like, even when we first started up New Room, I didn't have an offer. People were like, well, what's your offer? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, what's your offer? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you selling? I'm like, nothing. They're like, what? You're just giving this away? I'm just like, you guys are charging $10,000 for something that should be common sense. That's crazy to me, And now we have this trust issue because you've charged $10,000 for common sense stuff. It's like people finally caught on to what you were doing. And that's the problem. What people don't understand is that you shouldn't be doing things to people. You should be doing things with people, because consciousness always comes up. And then if people realize how you've been negatively manipulated as a positive indicator, you're going to have this belly ache of what you're seeing. And that's what I was saying a few weeks back, is that a tactic known is a tactic blown, which is the reasons why you have to work on your strategies first. Then the tactics will appear, because you need to get traction. Make no mistake about it. I'm very tactical and I'm very strategic, but you need both working in harmony with your vision, your mission, and your purpose, so that you're completely aligned. And that way you don't have to worry about what you did a few years ago. It's just, there's an ethical level involved with this. And the question's real simple. Is what I'm doing now really going to help people in the future? Is what I'm doing right now really going to affect me in a negative or positive way? Like, like, dude, I cannot begin to tell you so many vice presidents and presidents of companies that I work with behind the scenes, and they're like, yo, Fred, check my email. Like, I want to make sure that I'm not using, just like you use one more like indoctrination. They're just like, look, dude, please, because words do matter. And when you understand the value of your words, then you understand that you can create your own future. That's the reasons why I am proud to call myself an ethical copywriter. Like, I understand the value before I deploy one word, that it's going to be the best that I can make it. It may not still be perfect, but at least it'll be somewhat in the alignment of who I am, because I'm always growing. You know, the same Fred Smith this year is not the same, definitely not the same Fred Smith 2 years ago when we had over 2,200 people in that group, and I'm getting my head kicked in because I didn't know what other people wanted, right? But now we're at a point in time where, again, bro, I'm gonna bring this up. Nobody's talking about this. I am going to really officially consider what we're doing globally as we're all 6 world countries. And you're gonna like, what the heck is a 6th world country? Well, when you look at the logics behind it, you can Google 6th world country right now. So it says the 6th world is not a recognized geopolitical term, right? So the interesting thing about it, though, is that there's a standard, right? So the standard is a country who's trying to reset their identity. And that's exactly what we're doing right now, currently, with this administration. There is a resetting of the identity. So by definition, you look at 6th world country, you look at what we're doing, guess what? We fit the mold. But I want to take it a step further to say, since 2020 and after this pandemic, everybody's doing the exact same thing. That's why there's so much confusion going on right now, because a lot of the standards that worked before aren't working right now. And we have to really see what's working. But to me, it's just a matter of minding your own business, figuring out what your mission is, identifying your purpose, and putting everything in alignment with what your targets and what your goals are. Then you're doing the best that you can at your level to make sure that you're pushing with your company and your community and your country, right? And everybody else is going to do the exact same thing. And we'll all meet at the UN. How about that? You know, but my point is, it's just like, we have to start really thinking globally and acting locally. And I think that that's what's getting lost in translation. And because I happen to be online and I can see things going on locally and I can see things going on globally, it's enough to drive me literally crazy, because my brain just can handle that much capacity all at once, because I connect dots. Yeah. But the reality of it is, for somebody who's still struggling to make payroll, just do your best to see what the next step is. If somebody's trying to struggle to get their mental health together, just figure out what the next step is. Sometimes less really is more. It's just like my wife taught me. You know, we got some beautiful roses in the garden, right? But what she did, I'm like, man, how do you get them to just really, they have this amazing color to them. And she was like, it's simple. I just prune all the ones that I don't want to bloom, because the rose needs that energy. And by her pruning the sides of what she doesn't want, not only is she curating exactly how the rose should bloom, right? But it also grows a lot more vibrant and the roots are stronger. That's the exact same thing that we have to do collectively. Like what I'm looking to do in that room right with you, we talked about a lot. I'm just going to make it public right now. We have to get people's messages aligned with exactly who they want to be this time next year, the next 3 years, how they want to be in the future. But they also have to understand what the suppressive mechanisms are that are in media. I've learned them. I know them verbatim. But what I want to be able to do is actually train them so that you're able to really understand what you're up against. Because you're not up against a lot. It's the simplest things that are just tripping people over. It's like tripping over a paperclip at 200 miles an hour. So when I look at it, I just kind of go, really? Like, that's still working? I learned that back, years ago. But the answer is yes, because nobody said that the trap had to be hard, period. We just tend to over-engineer things.
Very true. Very true. I mean, and where you let off with people selling things for $10,000 that should be common sense is a big reason for this trust deficit in the market right now. I couldn't agree more. But one thing to that point is, one thing I'm noticing in speaking with the masses generally is common sense is becoming less and less common too. So that I think that stems back to where we let off with critical thinking. Once you're able to kind of critical think, I think it gives you more of grounds for normal, what would be considered as, I don't like the word normal because what does that really mean nowadays, but normal, standard, common sense, the way that you would think of it, right? You also mentioned something else great there. You're like, hey, what we put together is great, but it's not perfect. Perfect shouldn't be the goal. Perfection shouldn't be the goal. The way I look at doing everything is progress, not perfection. If I'm making progress every day, I personally know I'm not ever going to be perfect as an individual, nor are you, nor anybody walking this earth. But what can be perfect is the message we put together, the office, the business, the synergy, the relationship, the partnership. You can have perfect connections, but I never strive for perfection individually. I'm just striving for progress every day, both in my business and personally. So yeah. I've always took that quote to heart. We shouldn't be striving for perfection. It's progress we're going after, not perfection.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I also want to add to that too, is that me personally, I'm always looking for what's working and what's workable.
True.
Because that's going to give me the traction that I need to really put my own spin on my life, because my life is different than yours. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about it is, but collectively, we all still breathe the same air. Shout out to Rebecca here. Replay. Let us know. More importantly, let's just really.
Is that just on my end? You're frozen right now. I'm not sure what's happening. The live stream's still going, and I still see you, but you're frozen there. I can't see the comments, though, so I'm not sure if everybody's seeing this or it's just something. No, it's got to be with yours because now it's reloading. So, guys, bear with us a second. There you are. Are you back?
Yeah, what we're saying is just so powerful, bro. The
internet wanted to go out.
It's just the big, the internet gods here. But yeah, shout out to the tech companies who really make sure that we've got people who are paying attention to us. But yeah, I want to be able to really figure out what are you seeing as far as the vision? What are you seeing as far as what's really missing out here to really connect human beings in what I call that high tech, high touch?
Geez, that's pretty loaded question. What do I see in division? I mean, I think a lot of the division within individuals, or you could take a nation, or you could take the whole world. I mean, I think a lot of the division comes from the information that we're consuming and how we digest it internally. Do we just take it and say, oh, 100%, I agree with that, that's true? Do we check it? Do we look for multiple sources? Do we rationalize it in our brain? Okay, that's a headline there, but that doesn't sound accurate. Let me look more into the story. Or do we just run with everything we see as gold and then go argue and debate about it? So I think that's a big part of it, is really where you're getting your information, how you're digesting that information internally, and how bought in you are into that. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about being willing to come in with kind of an open mind and having an open dialogue and be willing to learn when you engage in conversations and not just always thinking you're right. I think a lot of that is everybody thinks their point is right. Now, it might be right about how you feel, but that doesn't make it objectively true. Something could be subjectively right in anybody's mind, but you have to have objective truths, facts, data to back these things up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to add to that too. I think the other thing too is that I'm seeing is that most people should just really define what a fact is. Because again, I talked about a few weeks back where people will literally fight for, like, I'm right, you're wrong kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We are all still here breathing for a reason. It's because what we're doing is working to some extent, right? So the reality of it is, what's your definition of fact? What's my definition of fact? Let's go ahead and get that synced up together, because that's the only way that we're really going to get progress. Now, again, I don't agree with everything that Ray says. Ray doesn't always agree with everything that I say. But the thing about it is, we're such critical thinkers that what happens is typically, especially when we're coaching people together, we both get a breakthrough and they get a breakthrough because we see things completely different. And that's how synthesizing works. We're coming together and creating a space where we're able to really take a look at things, break them down, analyze them, discuss them, see what are the emotions behind them, because emotion drives action typically, right? That's the reasons why people buy emotionally and they justify logically. But I like to start on the logic side because, I mean, it's kind of cool that, you know, bridges like work, you know, when I'm going across the freeway. I would have hate to have had that built by emotion. You know, like it ain't going to last long. It's not going to be strong and durable. It ain't going to last 100 years, right? So I like to look at it from an architect viewpoint. And I think that's where most people miss the mark, is the fact that it's okay that you can have emotions behind certain things. But I'm also an architect where I like to measure twice and cut once. But I also like to have that blueprint. I also like to make sure that that vision's working. Just like today, like this morning, perfect example. You know, just to understand, like, if somebody's texting you, how much is really involved with that? As an end user, we're just like, okay, we're just going to push buttons, and then we'll just push a button, and then that message magically goes over to the other side. But somebody had to invent the iPhone. Somebody had to invent the firmware. Somebody had to invent the app. Somebody had to put on their carrier line. Somebody had to have the packets with it. Somebody had to create the security encryption. It's just like so much stuff behind just doing one thing. That's why when I'm literally coaching my clients, I tell them the exact same thing. Like, look, you've got to focus in on one thing. And if you understand how many elements really make that one thing go right, you'll just focus in on one thing, you know, especially when somebody comes up to me and they go, hey, I just want to help everybody. And I'm just like,
yeah, I had that conversation yesterday. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like, how's that working for you? It's just like, well, it's not. Well, maybe not everybody wants to hear from you then now, huh? Not trying to be suppressive about it, but let's just really put some color behind it to understand that until you really get proper optics, because there's a formulation involved with communication, there's a formulation involved with messaging, there's a formulation with running ads, there's a formulation with everything that you're doing. You just have to be able to understand what formula is in your season to be able to apply it at that time. It's no differently than having a Swiss Army knife. Like, it has all of these different functions to it, but you just have to mainly focus in on the base that's holding it all together. Like, just focus in on that part right there. Like, what is your base? What is your mission control? What is going to cause you to really have a solid foundation? And I've seen it all the time, especially when people go crazy. They'll scale ads to the moon, but they don't have their marketing in place. So then it's just like a flagpole where that whole thing just collapses in slow motion. They're still throwing ad spend, but they didn't get a proper solid marketing foundation and maybe one or two next steps after that, because an offer is always shifting. But if you aren't solid in your principles, in your beliefs, in your convictions, it's just like with New Room. People were like, why'd you go back to New Room? I'm like, well, New Room is what made all this prolific stuff happen in my life. You know, we started that 5 years ago, and it's still generating this tremendous buzz today. And the craziest thing about it, Ray, is that, you know, we've had people in there, oh, I don't know if it's an active group. Oh, no, it's a very active group. It's a whole bunch of people who are just busy in that group, which is the reasons why we decided to just start broadcasting. It just makes more sense at this point in time. But make no mistake about it. It's like one of my mentors said, the water's always cold. It's just like at some point in time, you have to jump in, but understand if you're going to jump in, you need to also be properly trained as well. And this is what the market's missing right now. Look, love it or hate it, when Trump went out there for, I think, 4 or 5 days out into the Middle East and brought back like $2 trillion or whatever. And then somewhere on the statements, it's just like, okay, well, it caused our inflation to go down to 2.9%. It's because he understands how leverage works. It's because he understands how money works. He's at some point in time, you have to stop the bleeding and just go back to basics. So he's shaking hands. You don't have to like him, just understand the successful actions that he's doing to get a result. That's all I care about at the end of the day. I'd rather study people who are on a massive scale, who are actually doing something that's simple and successful. Like even when I was in the car business, for 10 minutes, we trained people on just how to shake hands. And the people who learned how to shake hands were actually 30% more likely to close a deal. Why? Because most people were on their phones. But what did? We went back to a basic function of human communication. You saying something, Ray?
I was saying basic human connection. Yeah. I was agreeing with you.
I mean, and that's really what it boils down to is again, we can talk and we can plan, but it takes money to buy land. In order to really get a solid foundation, you have to really understand that we have to plan accordingly in order to get things that we want. If you want to manifest anything in your life, manifestation should not be this weird word. What manifestation really is no differently than I'm an architect. I got an idea. I draw it out on a blueprint. And then from the blueprint, if I can't do it, I either hire general contractors. They build the building. We all eat and we get paid, or it goes to market, right? That happened. That happens all the time. When you drive a car, somebody got the idea and it manifested into a car. I don't know why people make it so hard to understand that you have to focus in on, number one, getting your emotions somewhat out of the way so that you can plan, but also really having clear optics, because without those clear optics, you cannot get the result. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care whether it's personal or professional. You got to get your optics right.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with most of that, if not all of that. And I mean, you led off by saying something that's 100% true. I'm not going to agree with every single thing that comes out of your mouth. You're not going to agree with everything that comes out of my mouth. We're different people. That's the way it should be. I think it'd be weird if you totally believed 100% of everything you heard from any individual source, individual news outlet. I don't care what it is. Nobody you're going to agree with 100% of the time. If so, you're probably not thinking for yourself if you're always that agreeable, right? And then, you know, I think with you and myself, Fred, or in any case, I should say, when I disagree with somebody or don't have the same opinion, I still respect them enough to listen, to learn from it. And then maybe I have a disagreement, or maybe now I have a new point of view because I just heard from somebody that I didn't hear that point of view before. I didn't have that thought process. Maybe I was closed off to hearing or seeing that that point or that thought in the past. And then you went on to bring up a great example. So, like, again, my thought process and the way you're wired is very similar. You don't always have to agree with somebody. You don't even always have to like somebody, but you can give them mutual respect and at least come in to have an open, honest dialogue and conversation with somebody. Now, may you agree, may you disagree. That happens throughout the discourse, and you see, but I think then you brought up the example of Trump's trip to the Middle East and what happened there. And he's just a great example of somebody that no matter what his actions are, if you agree with, I love the way you put it. Like, I don't really care what he did or how he did it. I understand the thought and the action behind it and why he did it. So he's one of the person, I think, in maybe in all of history, but definitely in recent history, that has been most scrutinized, polarized. I mean, all the buzzwords you want to put behind it, to the point now where people don't even look at his actions. They're like, oh, Trump did it, I disagree with it. Well, would you have disagreed with it if somebody you liked did it? Because if so, that's a very poor way to go through looking at pros and cons of somebody. Just because he did it, I don't like it. I see it all the time with him. And I'm not sitting up here, patting my back on my Trump hat here or anything like that. But I'm just saying, it doesn't matter if it's Trump, the other party, anybody. There's going to be things I agree with that they do and I disagree with that they do. But it's based off the policy, the action, not the individual and my likability for them on whether I would condone or agree with or disavow or disagree with that, that thought process, that policy, whatever the case may be. And I think, goes back into what you were saying about the divisiveness, within individuals, countries, nations, world, people, populations. A lot of that is all politicized, and it all comes back from what do you and I always talk about? Words matter, how it's communicated, and then how that communication is received and internalized, digested, however you want to say it. So yeah, I mean, I find all those things you just mentioned, that was my thought on it, and I think those are really fascinating, intriguing, important topics to discuss.
Yeah, I wanna pause that right there, because what you just put into a nice bow. I want to put my finger on there so that you can just tie it like that, right? Because that's the other side of the data that everybody is missing. If you're getting triggered, if you're getting angry, if you're getting upset, if you're doing anything to tune off that signal, you are missing a successful action, period. And when you look at it like that and you multiply it times the people who are missing that opportunity to actually learn something that's going to benefit their life, then through time, this is what happens. They stop listening to people. They're not understanding things. And as a result of misunderstandings, they're not getting their own actions right in business or personal, professional life, whatever. They're missing opportunities to grow. They're missing the money, and they wonder why they can't get the bag. Look, man, there's a whole bunch of people out there, and it's not just me, who may or may not disagree with what he does. All I'm saying is just that you got to study the players on the playing field. It's no different than everybody who watches sports.
Yep.
They may not play the sport, and everybody wants to be an armchair quarterback. But the difference here, though, is that you can take those same actions and apply them to your local life. Let's do it. So let's just say you wanted to create peace in your neighborhood, or you wanted to go out there and get more money. What do? Do like he did. Go out there, shake hands. Talk to people. If you already have established relationships, go rekindle them. See what's changed since the last time you've spoken. Like, what is so hard to understand about that? And then people talking about they broke. It's like, no, you're not engaging people. It's a communication. It's the communication. He knew what his purpose was going out there. He knew what his intention was going out there. You don't have to like, again, the reasons and the methodology. Just understand. I mean, I'm pretty good, but I've never closed $1 trillion deals. I have closed $1 billion deals, for the record, but I haven't.
I've never crossed $1 million deals. No, I've never crossed $1 million deals yet. So mass respect to even billion. And I'm not even thinking about trying to close $1 trillion deal.
Well, you know, it's just I think Tony Robbins says it like it's just the same problem, just amplified. You know, I don't agree with everything that he says, but one of the things that he says that I definitely can latch on to was that. And I just happen to say new levels, new devils, because that's a little bit more of a common terminology. But the fact of the matter is, though, you have a whole bunch of people when you start seeing it and just say, hey, all you have to do is simply say this. You want to anybody wants a breakthrough right now? All you have to do is say this. Trump's not the only one. Oh my God, I can shake hands too.
Yeah,
oh my God, I can close a deal. Oh my God,
repeat it to yourself a few times. Yeah. He's not the only one. No.
Yeah, it's not. And Rebecca's spot on. It takes the same amount of energy. I just had that conversation this morning. You know, it takes just as much energy to think negative as it does positive. The question is, where are your optics? Because I don't have that kind of energy where I just want to stay in a negative state of mind. It doesn't make any sense. It's draining. I'm not making any money if I'm thinking negative. I am making money and impact when I'm being positive and helping people out. And really, I have to be in a state of mind where I have to be able to see what they can't see. And I have to coach them to get their optics up. Like somebody had to coach him up to be able to see that. If you look at his first term, it was a train wreck. He had success, but you look at him smiling. And you look at the second picture. He's got, you know, he's got his what is it? His mugshot.
Yeah.
Dude, like when I went to the UN, I'm like, that's a real picture. Like it's plastered all over the place. Bro. It's crazy. But you know, the thing about it though is that it goes to show you that with that E word experience, your narrative is always going to shift, which is the reasons why you have to have solid principles and fundamentals and foundations in place so that you can take your experience, just like me and Ray talked about. Ray's got his set of facts. I've got my set of facts. When we come together, we create a nice space where we can really look at things, and then we come up with a completely different outcome. Just like, and people tend to disagree with me on this one. 1 + 1 is 2, but also 1 + 1 is 3. From a mathematical viewpoint, yes, 1 + 1 is 2. And then I think the other guy, hey man, I need that mic, man. He says that that's not true. I'm trying to think of his name. Was Terrence Howard?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I need that mic,
Howard.
man.
It's definitely Howard.
Yeah, Terrence Howard, right? So you got him saying something, which is cool. I haven't got of the conversation yet. From a synthesis standpoint, 1 + 1 does equal 3. When you have the new information and you have the old information, you have a different completely product, which is a third thing. That's why 1 + 1 does equal 3. So there's not fuzzy logic here. There's not fuzzy math. This is just straight up how it is when you come together. Why do you think training works? You know, when you're learning how to play volleyball, you've got a coach who may have done it so much. I don't know anybody who's a theoretical coach. Well, I'm talking about from a sports viewpoint, right?
Yeah, most have some practical experience at one point or another.
100%, because you have to understand the deep, subtle nuances. And this is what I say even to our advertising clients is that the conversions are in the nuances. So when you hear a coach saying go deep, that's what that really means. What that really means is you have to study the subtle nuances. Like with me on a communication level, in order for me to close $1 billion deal, and it was literally a handshake deal at that time, it was a 10-year relationship. I understood all the subtle nuances of that person's business. I understood all the complexities. I knew all the pain points. I knew everything about what was going on internally and externally. I knew all the political implications. Like I knew a lot in order to be able to say the right thing at the right time to get that yes. And that's how we have to study our lives. But can you really study your life in a way if you're constantly emotionally compromised? It's pretty hard. You know,
100%.
Are you really able to focus if you're continually worried about all of these things versus just making the main thing the main thing? This is the reasons why speed scaling works from a very high level, is because It's literally drawing a straight line and walk it. We got so much information out here. How was I able to really see one guru and that guru's student together in the same day within minutes? I don't know if they posted at the exact same time, but do you know how many reels are out there? That was improbable. But that's how your mind can work as well. Like, you literally are creating your algorithm of life in real time. But if you don't take responsibility for that, and if you don't shape and mold your intention, then you're going to be like everybody else out here who's stuck, versus really understanding that there is a game plan, and you just have to really plan it out. You've got to get your foundations right. You've got to get your structure correct. You got to get your messaging dialed in. So by the time you utter or speak or launch that first word, it's going to be pretty close to not missing.
Yeah. No, 100%. And you were saying something there about, like, it takes about the same amount of energy, whether you have a positive or negative outlook on things. One of the things, anybody that's heard me speak before, or students, or, attended any of my, trainings or live streams or whatever, something that I have embedded into, I guess it's wired into my mindset and how I think, but like, I show up every day, and there's two things people can't stop, no matter what's happening in the outside world: politics, weather, freaking internet goes down. People cannot control my attitude and my effort that I show up with every day. So I can damn sure show up with a positive attitude and put all my effort into my objective that day, whatever that may be, whether it's taking calls, whether it's writing copy, whether it's reviewing clients, stuff like you and I do so often. You were talking about CEOs and vice presidents sending you over something. I had 2 business owners send me over some of their email and their landing page before they wanted to launch it, because they wanted my feedback before they actually, put it in front of their market, which, you and I get a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think if anybody can start to operate on that way, if you just wake up every day and say, hey man, no matter what happens outside of my control today, nobody can control the effort and the attitude that I bring into, how I approach my day and everything that goes with it within that.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to add to that, take a quick commercial break to say, go to speedscaling.com if you want to get the notifications of the updates. As you may or may not know, me and Ray actually have a real agency with a capital A. It's called the Power Agency. And the whole purpose of that is to really empower you personally, professionally, because they all have this loop that me and Ray have really talked about for a long time. He's gotten access to PDOC's methodology, which is pretty spot on. I've got my high level military stuff, which is definitely spot on. So between both of us working with you and really trying to help you with your messaging and your offer and your positioning, I think we're qualified, because quite frankly, if we can't help you, we let you know. Like, we have turned people down. Like, it sucks, but there's a certain criterion that we're looking for. So, but we're also going to probably, I don't know how soon we're going to be ramping speed scaling down, because I told people it's not marketing hype and tactics with me. If I say we're shutting something down, chances are we're shutting something down, because we have to really focus in on the agency side of things, because as we're growing and expanding out here, it's just been crazy. And that's one of the reasons why we have this broadcasting format now. So go to speedscaling.com. Get on the list. I don't know how long I'm gonna have that list up. I'm doing my best to actively ramp it down, but we got so much stuff over there, bro. It's just like, so, but we'll figure it out. But getting back to the actually what's at hand right now, as far as people, because we also have the DM Setter Academy. What are you seeing out there as far as communication on the actual ground level for people trying to make offers? Because I'm still getting hit up with people who don't understand the basic elements of communication that we're talking about, and it does affect, as far as personal and professional performance. Anything else you want to speak to that on that?
I mean, I would say we're just seeing a lot of, similar to what we talked about in other capacities or aspects today. I mean, we're just seeing a lot of watered down tactics and stuff. So with DM setting and making offers, there's just a lot of bland outreach. I would say there's still about 80% of people doing outreach, DM setters, VAs, even business owners, probably about 80% are using outdated tactics, outdated approaches, nothing genuine, copy and paste. And they're just out there. Hey, Fred, what if I could give you an extra 15 to 20 appointments this month? It's like, did you not know I booked 286 appointments this month? Would your extra 20 make a difference in my, like, they didn't even take the time to find out where you're at, what you could use, what you're struggling with, and then maybe make some recommendations or suggestions. They just try to jam it down your throat, which I think is a big problem. And Fred, I know we normally block out two hours for this time. I told you there were going to be certain Fridays where I had to cut out early for stuff with my daughter. Today's one of them. I'm actually going a little over. Today's our softball finale. It's the last game of the season. So that was a short season, as I told you, for 2 months. So I get pretty involved in that, and I have to cut out of certain meetings early and stuff. Today's the last one. So I got to really get jumping soon. I just wanted to at least try to wrap up and get to a good conclusion point.
Yep, I appreciate that, brother. I'm with you as well. Up until about September, October, me and Ray are going to be cutting this short because we both got a lot of stuff going on, but we always tend to be in alignment with this. So, and that's actually I was about to wrap up anyway, brother, because here the reason why I brought that up is because moving forward, if you're having a problem with your offer, your service, your messaging, whatever, doesn't matter, personal or professional, as long as it has to do with messaging and us really helping you get a breakthrough, let us know. We do want to have you on the show. We want to be able to help you out. I don't care if it has something to do with ad spend or media buying. You just let us know because we're in all those lanes. And quite frankly, we haven't trained all the gurus, but we've trained enough of them. And I personally have over 4,000 agency experience over as far as just training, and so does Ray. So what we want to be able to do is to really wrap this up and just say, if you're struggling, that's going to be our highest and best offer right now. We'd rather show you live online if you're willing to do that. If not, then just send us screenshots. Go to askfredsmith.com or something like that. I'll drop the links below if I can, but this is being plastered all over the internet right now. But we're here to show you. We're not here to just talk about it. Like, that's the difference between me and Ray. We love to get down. We love to go live. We love to do the messaging and offer. So, brother, if you got anything else to say, I'm going to wrap it up as well. But I appreciate you being on here.
I got nothing else other than I would agree with you. I can honestly say, you said you think we're qualified to help people with that. I can say that with certainty. I know we're qualified. I don't think that. And yeah. Well, touche. So is life, right? So is life. But no, I got nothing else today. I just got to get running off to my daughter's final game. So cool. We'll wrap it up here. Anybody watching, I'd love to hear if you could drop something in the comments about, your takeaway, anything you'd like to add to what we elaborated or what we discussed. And maybe lastly, any other topics you'd like Fred and I to discuss on these going forward would be great to hear from you guys.
100%. And guys, much love. We'll see you next week. And again, tell a friend, share the links, and come on into the group. We'll talk to you soon.
This is New Room Collective, where collapse meets clarity and leaders learn to speak in storms. No hype, no masks, just command grade truth. Let's begin.